Are you ready, kids?
This is the worst.
Welcome into the Worst Fantasy Show. I am your host with the least, Jack Lucenay, coming to you on this Sunday morning, week 15 of the NFL fantasy football season. And we are answering questions. We've got questions in the Fantasy Football Advice Network. Shout out to those guys. They are basically a social media for fantasy football. If you want to go check that out, that's fantasyfootballadvice.network. But we've also got some of my own questions. I went through all of my leagues this morning, pulled all of my major questions that I have going into this week. And of course, if we get any questions in the comments, we will answer those as swiftly and promptly as possible. But to start with, we'll go actually into some Advice Network questions before I pontificate about my own leagues and my own problems. So starting with, we had a kicker question, which I thought was hilarious because that's where we're at. It's the fantasy football playoffs. We are officially micromanaging every single decision. Which kicker? Stay with Chris Boswell, Justin Tucker, or Kaimi Fairbairn? Those are three great kickers. I think obviously Justin Tucker has had his struggles this year. Boswell, the Wizard of Boz, I think he's the number one kicker on the year. I think you stick with Chris Boswell, regardless of the matchup against Philadelphia. And if anything, tougher defense means probably more kicker opportunities from further away. Yeah, stick with the Wizard of Boz. Brian Thomas Jr. or DJ Moore in a full PPR league. Oof. I'm staring down the barrel of this exact decision myself. Albert, my man, what's going on? I see you in the comments. Thank you for stopping by. Man, so I guess I'll just take this as a segue into my own leagues. First of all, my answer right now, as of officially this second, is DJ Moore. But, look, so I pulled my leagues, my biggest questions this week in my leagues right now. In my $50 league, the league that wouldn't die, and Najee Harris or Tyrone Tracy is one that I'm debating. In my Megala Bowl league, two players were dropped to me. CJ Stroud and Kyle Pitts have clearly underperformed this year. They were both dropped, and I picked them up because I'm dealing with injuries at the tight end position. I was the Evan Ingram owner. And then I've been just streaming quarterback all year in a single quarterback. And so I have Stroud and Jameis Winston at this point because I saw Stroud got dropped. I immediately picked him up because even though he's underperformed, he's got a baseline compared to every other quarterback. So I'm deciding if I should start Stroud or Jameis. And then the wide receiver decisions are killing me this. I've got two leagues, Megala Bowl and my main $150 redraft league, where I am very wide receiver rich, and I do not know who I am going to start. So in Megala Bowl, I have to decide between Brian Thomas Jr., Jerry Jeudy, Amari Cooper, and DK Metcalf. Start two. And then I also have to decide between Kyle Pitts and Hunter Henry. And then in my $150 redraft league, I have to decide between Anthony Richardson or Jameis Winston. And then I'm also deciding between Brian Thomas Jr., DK Metcalf, Calvin Ridley, Adam Thielen, DJ Moore. And then add in Tyrone Tracy for the flex. And I have to decide one of those for the wide receiver spot, one of those for the flex. So I am a little spoiled for choice, but it's like a good problem to have. But at the same time, it's like I really don't know who I am going to start. I think it's really going to be up to Game Time Wire decision for me. Go with all the news and information I can get, plus my gut and heart feeling. But as of right now, like the way I have it set up in those leagues, I can go look. In the league that wouldn't die currently, I have Brian Thomas Jr. in the lineup. I think with the lack of Evan Ingram, even though New York Jets is a tough matchup, I think he is going to be great. And I have DJ Moore in because he was coming off the quad and he still saw 8 targets, caught 6 of them. That made me more confident. And it's a great matchup against Minnesota. And my only other options in this league would be to put Najee Harris in the flex, who has just as bad of a matchup. And then I could put Jerry Jeudy or DJ Moore into my wide receiver spot. But I mean, Jerry Jeudy is an interesting one because he's been so good. And again, with David Njoku now out, but with that almost makes me nervous of like if Njoku doesn't play and it's a bad weather game, does Jerry Jeudy still get it done just on pure volume and targets? Or are you better off taking your shot on, I have Nick Westbrook-Akine on the bench. I don't know that I'm in that situation yet. I think weather reports are going to be very important today. Normally I don't give a shit about something like that, but that's something I'm going to be keying in on a little bit later today. And honestly, I'll probably be on streams, not on, like, I'm not going to physically be on them, but I'm going to be on going and like looking out for other people's streams so I can go ask questions right up until the moment. Trying to gather as much information today as I can before we get to those start sit decisions. And in the Megalo Bowl right now, which if you're not familiar with the Megalo Bowl, that is the fantasy footballers, their main tournament league. I am in the playoffs. So I have Saquon and Derrick Henry locked into my flex. Currently, CJ Stroud is my quarterback. Home matchup against Miami. Miami defense has been tough, but hopefully that can be a little bit of a shootout with Nico Collins back. My wide receivers, I have Amon-Ra locked in. I have DJ Moore currently in that second wide receiver spot. I have Kyle Pitts in my tight end spot. I just don't have anybody else to play. Oh, actually, I'm lying. I have Hunter Henry. So that's one I could decide. But Hunter Henry is a bad matchup, and he's splitting with Amari Cooper. I'm just going to take the upside. Like, Kyle Pitts might be a dud, but I don't see a world where Hunter Henry can really hit the same ceiling that Kyle Pitts theoretically can hit. Though, now that I say that out loud and then I'm looking at it, like Hunter Henry's actually had bigger games this year. Oh, it's just such a bad matchup on the road against Arizona. Maybe I will switch that later. But Brian Thomas Jr., Amari Cooper, and DK Metcalf are all on my bench right now. Maybe that's the one. Jerry Jeudy, sub him out for Amari Cooper for upside. Amari Cooper saw 14 targets last week. Really feels like he's finally getting integrated into the offense. Matchup against Detroit. Yeah. I mean, it's him or BTJ or DK Metcalf. And I still feel like I need to see it this week from DK Metcalf. I've actually benched him for the last 2 weeks. I have him in tons of leagues with all the injuries that he's been dealing with. And also, they were bad matchups. Shout out to, again, the fantasy footballers who brought up that he has never surpassed 60 receiving yards against the Arizona Cardinals. And so I benched him for that game. And then I benched him against the Jets. So, excuse me. So, yeah. DK Metcalf, like there's some leagues. So looking at like my home league, for example, which is another $150 league. I have DK Metcalf in above the likes of like a Trey Tucker or Brandon Cooks. But when I go back and I'm deciding between like DJ Moore, Brian Thomas Jr., kind of more elite options, I'm having trouble getting DK into my lineup. So I do understand those types of questions. we'll go grab a couple questions from the Advice Network. Again, anyone out there watching, if you guys want to drop some questions in the comments, feel free. If not, we'll just drop out early today. I'm totally fine with that. All right, let's see. Ooh, defensive question today, though. Commanders or the Falcons? So the Washington Commanders, um, taking on the Saints and Jake Hayner. Jake Haynes, sexy Jake Hayner, in his first ever matchup. That's a tough one. And Atlanta, theoretically, so Aiden O'Connell left in like an air cast, but now he's not going to miss the rest of the season. In fact, he might even play this game. Ooh, big question of if it's Desmond Ritter, I would think that the Desmond Ritter revenge game narrative doesn't stick and Atlanta defense is a good play. But me personally, I'm going with the Commanders. I think they've just been the better defense all year, and I'm rolling with that. Dylan Fink, what's up, my man? Playoffs. Yes, playoffs. Full PPR, lost K9 this week. Yeah, that sucks. Unfortunately, you don't have Charbonnet. I'm actually playing Charbonnet in my main league this week above DK Metcalf, even who I was just talking about. In the flex, need one running back, one flex, one tight end. Bucky Irving, McLaughlin, Ford, Braylon Allen, and Spears. Yikes. I mean, for the running back, I'm just going to roll with Bucky Irving. It's not the greatest matchup. In fact, it's potentially one of the worst matchups right now. The Chargers defense has been really good, but because Bucky can get it done through the air, I think, him being probable, I would think that he is going to play and be a full participant. They're still trying to make the playoffs, are the Buccaneers. Yeah, I think I personally go Bucky Irving. And then the wide receiver, you have JMO and Devonta Smith. So both of those guys are going in for me. That's what it is. I'm taking the upside of Jameson Williams in the high-flying Buffalo matchup and hoping – because it's like I could play Braylon Allen and hope that – but just so you know, Breece Hall is probable he is going to play, it seems like, and seems like he could get a full allotment. But I expect Braylon Allen to still be involved. It's just that now his ceiling is capped. It's like he could very much have a 10 for 60 in one game, like 10 rushes for 60 yards and a touchdown. But I think, especially in the playoffs, depending, unless you're like the top seed and the rest of your team is just stock to smoke and barrel. But if you kind of snuck in, I think I would be trying to maximize upside and go with JMO and Devonta Smith. So that's the wide receiver and flex. Oh, there was no wide receiver. So I guess Jameson Williams maybe in the flex. And then for tight end, yeah, I don't care that you got Scary Terry starting. Already I would still start Ertz. Yeah, I like Schultz. I have to start him in another league. Muth and Mayer are the other options. I do like the Muth. I just think Ertz, I think it's like 3 straight games he scored a touchdown. He's just so involved. He's basically the second target behind Terry McLaurin. And I do expect them to score a lot of points on New Orleans. I think New Orleans is they've kind of played above level for a couple games with the interim coach. And I think this is the one where, maybe the bottom falls out with Jake Hayner starting at quarterback and they just get whomped by a much better Commanders team. So I think me personally, I would start Ertz. Rachel, what's going on? Tootsie Pop. Hi, Jack. Would you start MVS, NWI, or Javonte? Yeah, I'm going with Nick Westbrook-Akine. The chain was finally broken. The touchdown chain was finally broken. But the matchup's there against Cincinnati, and that's what I'm looking for. With MVS, I liked it a lot better when it was Derek Carr. It's just a complete intangible. Like, maybe he does catch a long touchdown, but you have no idea because it's Jake Hayner making his first official NFL start at quarterback. So the only guy on the list here, I mean, Javonte Williams too. It's like it could be an Audric Day or Jaleel McLaughlin Day. You can't trust your playoffs to that. I'm taking the pure upside of NWI. Maybe he doesn't come through. Maybe he has a dud game like last week. But the only guy on this list that I see having actual potential to have a huge game is Nick Westbrook-Akine with Will Levis just willing to throw it downfield, and that Bengals defense has just been willing to give it up lately. So that's where I'm going with it. But thank you guys so much for dropping a couple questions. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to drop them. I'm going to take a couple more from the Advice Network and then probably cut out early today because I'm a little bit under the weather. But I still want to come and jump on the stream, make sure that we're doing the playoff stream. Oh, here we go. Oh, this is a gross one. Tank Bigsby versus the Jets or Najee Harris versus the Philadelphia Eagles. And what's funny is I have the benefit of it's a poll, so I can actually see other people have answered. And they answered Tank Bigsby. And I feel the opposite. I would actually start Najee Harris. I know it's a terrible matchup, but it doesn't matter. The Steelers are still going to overload Najee Harris. And I don't know that Tank Bigsby gets enough work to be relevant in a game against the Jets where I think not only could Mac Jones potentially be more involved, but it's like Travis Etienne isn't dead. He's still there. So at the most, you would think that Bigsby is going to get a 50 to maybe 60% allotment of the snaps. I'm not banking on that. I know it's a terrible matchup for Najee Harris, but he is at least a starter, and people really want Jaylen Warren to be a thing. Jaylen Warren is fetch. Jaylen Warren is not a thing. So me personally, I would start Najee there. All right, we got a big question here. Jonathan Taylor, James Cook, David Montgomery, and T. Higgins. Pick 2 to start. And this is full PPR. So there's like 2 flex spots, which I have in my Megalo Bowl league, so I understand that format. Okay, so Jonathan Taylor, James Cook, David Montgomery, and T. Higgins. David Montgomery is in for me. I want as many pieces of that Buffalo-Detroit game, and I'm hoping it turns into basically what we saw last week with the Rams and the Bills. And I think it's possible because the Detroit Lions defense has really been struggling with all of the injuries as of late. And so I would expect that to be a high-scoring, high-flying matchup. Maybe not to the same degree, but I think Goff can definitely get it done with the weapons that he has around him. So I want Amon-Ra, I want Montgomery, I want Gibbs. I even want Jameson and Sam Laporta in. And on the flip side, for the Bills, I want Josh Allen, I want Khalil Shakir, I want James Cook. Even though James Cook had a bad week last week, I feel like that overcorrection should be coming, especially as far as getting him involved in the passing game as opposed to Ty Johnson, which is nonsensical. So yeah, I'm wanting the main pieces of that game. So I think I go David Montgomery and James Cook. You just take both sides of it and you hope for the best. You hope that the highest part, because Jonathan Taylor is the other one, does give me a little bit of cause for pause. T. Higgins too. It could be a huge T. Higgins week. You never know. I'm going to split the difference, actually. I'm going to go David Montgomery and T. Higgins, I think. Even because I'm like a known T. Higgins hater, it feels like I'm overlooking him for a big week this week against the Titans. John Chotka, what up? Flex 2, Bucky, Rashad, Zay, Pollard, 25 PPR. If Njoku doesn't play, Stone Smart, Dalton Schultz. So Njoku won't play, as far as I know. Stone Smart is some ballsy. That's a ballsy play. I have him in exactly one lineup. It's a dynasty lineup. So, and I don't have Dalton Schultz. I think if I did, I would take him. Even if Stone Smart outproduces Dalton Schultz, that's a process over results play of like Schultz should have a better game. Hopefully, Miami Houston can get into a little bit of a shootout territory. He did have a decent game last week, and I'm trying to chase that a little bit in one of my leagues. So maybe I'm a little biased in that sense. But Stone Smart with 2 T's is such a deep play. I know it's Tampa. I know it's Justin Herbert. Man. Yeah, I think personally I'm still rolling with Dalton Schultz and playing it a little bit safe there. And for your running back, flex two of them. I mean, Bucky and Rashad, that sucks. Zay and Pollard. I actually think I would go Zay Flowers and Tony Pollard. Flowers against the Giants, it's a decent matchup. Uh, he should get it done at least, if not by a touchdown, then by volume. And Tony Pollard is now probable, and I'm basing that off of underdog best ball when I was doing my couple of my last minute lineups this morning. Pollard popped up with a probable tag, so that'll surely transfer over to like the main fantasy football sites like Sleeper and Underdog, Sleeper and Yahoo and ESPN, and the rest of them should pick up on that pretty soon. I do expect Pollard to play, and I literally just put him in one of my own lineups. It was on Yahoo actually, and this is a league where I had Cooper Kupp, so this should tell you I had Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Kyron Williams, who have been pretty good to me this year. This week it didn't work out that great. For Kupp and Stafford at least. So now I need the upside on top of it. So I am starting Tony Pollard in my flex above Braylon Allen, Najee Harris, and the one that I'm actually kind of debating is if I want to put Khalil Shakir in my flex. But the problem is if I do that, then I definitely am not starting Tony Pollard because I would be starting Bijan Robinson above him for sure in my second running back spot, and I already started Kyron. So the question for me becomes, do I play Pollard or do I play Shakir? As much as I love Shakir, I still lean slightly on the Tony Pollard side. So I should kind of tell you how I feel about Tony Pollard. So I think Pollard and Zay Flowers, because I like Bucky Irving, and it's not that I hate playing him, but it's such a bad matchup. And with him and Rachaad White probably splitting work, I don't expect them to have monster games. I expect them to have serviceable games. And I think Tony Pollard can definitely outproduce a serviceable game. And I think so can Zay Flowers against the Giants. Let's see what else we got for questions. If not, we can just wrap this up a little bit early today. Excuse me. Ooh, I actually like this one. Bench one for week 15. Jonathan Taylor, Chuba Hubbard, or Jahmyr Gibbs. This is, I think, going to be a lot of people's problems this week is, you've made the playoffs. Now what? Now you're deciding not just between like, I have 6 bye weeks and it's between this jabroni I picked up off waivers. It's like, no, I've got 3 studs. That's 3 studs. Jonathan Taylor, Chuba Hubbard, and Jahmyr Gibbs. Most weeks you would want to start all 3 of those guys. I think with that, you do just play the matchup. That's one of the rare instances of, they always say start your studs, but when you are deciding between 3 studs, I think you go matchup based. So I think I personally also would bench Jonathan Taylor, which was the popular answer there. Okay. This is already run, but I'm going to answer this question anyways because I love debating ethics, especially in fantasy football. I'm in 4th place and supposed to win tonight. Is it okay for me to bench my players tonight and to lose and stay in 4th for the playoff matchups? If not, I'll move up to 2nd place as I should win by 50. The team I'm playing against is in last place, so it won't change who is in the playoffs. Is it good strategy or bad sportsmanship? So that's an interesting one because now you're basically talking about seeding. Me personally, I don't really care about those types of things, to be honest. I think you get to a point where you're kind of overthinking it because I'm also thinking about, I think this person kind of has it backwards, to be honest. Like the advantage is to get that 2nd seed because in a lot of leagues, you're either going to have a bye week or you're going to have potentially an easier first round matchup. Because, I mean, unless you're looking at it like, okay, I'm in fourth and I'm going to face the guy in fifth, and I know his team is dog shit. So it's a cakewalk. But this team that snuck in last place, they actually made a lot of really good moves, and they're a really strong team, and they're actually really scary. Like, okay, there's a world where you can kind of convince me, but for the most part, like, you want the higher buy or the higher seed, because you get a potential bye week or na. So, again, and when you talk about the ethics involved, I think the interesting question is at the end: is it good strategy or bad sportsmanship? And the answer is both. I think so often people want to categorize, especially ethical issues, as black and white, when it's like, no, the answer is that both are true at the same time. Like, it is a good strategy. It is also bad sportsmanship. It's funny because I was actually just watching TikToks this morning, and there was one specifically that I'm thinking about now, about Jedis, of like, why when Jedis are fighting do they not just like turn the lightsaber off and on really quick? Because, like, when someone goes to block the lightsaber, just like turn it off and then turn it right back on, right? Because, like, they wouldn't be able to, what I mean, or use, like, and there's other people that have been like, well, why wouldn't they use the force? So the answer ultimately is because it's bad form. It's bad sportsmanship. And when I say bad form, I don't mean technique. I mean, like, if you've ever seen the movie Hook, now we're getting in the weeds. If you've seen the movie Hook, with Robin Williams playing an adult version of Peter Pan, when him and Hook are fighting at the end, Hook kind of like cheats and pulls his sword on him and nicks him with it. And his son's like, bad form, because he's talking about, again, the ethics of it. Even though it was a good strategy and the move worked, the integrity behind it was lacking. And so that's the idea of, turning your lightsaber on and off. And it's also the idea of, benching your players on purpose so you stay in a certain seed as opposed to getting a higher seed and da. So it is good strategy and bad form. That's exactly what it is. All right, we got our last question of the day, unless someone else pops in with a question. Evan Gittleman, my man, what's up? Full PPR, pick 2, JSN, Mike Evans, or Chuba? Oh, that's a toughie. Hate to have to bench any of them, but my other guys are Kamara. Yeah, I just was talking about this. This is a phenomena that everyone's going to be dealing with. You made the playoffs because you have a great team. Well, now you have to make those decisions about starting your guys. And it's, in this situation, again, rarely would I ever tell you can bench Mike Evans. They always say start your studs. But the problem is when you have multiple studs. So I agree with you, Bijan. I think Kamara is an interesting one, actually, that you could think about. I think because it's Jake Haener, the emergence of Kendre Miller and the way that this game script could go if they're gonna win this ball game, I actually would not hate if you sat Kamara. I think you could slide Chuba above Kamara. Chuba has just been so relevant to the team. Jonathan Brooks is dead again. Like, it's all Chuba, baby. And it's a great matchup against Dallas. They've been playing a lot better. I think Chuba should be ranked above Kamara this week. So I actually think Chuba, Bijan, CD are locked. And then the question becomes, I think JSN in a full PPR has been so good. It's a solid matchup. I think he's still going to be in the lineup for sure for me. The question actually for me becomes, in that last flex, am I putting Mike Evans or am I putting Alvin Kamara? And I think that's a bit of a coin flip. I think personally, I would go Kamara by a little bit. I have this kind of like I have a feeling about Mike Evans where it's like he is either going to give you all or nothing this week because it's a really bad matchup against the Chargers. And it just feels like if he goes for, he's not just going to get like an 8-yard touchdown. I feel like he's going for like 2 long touchdowns or fuck all this week. And so it's like I've kind of thrown him into a couple of my best ball lineups just to kind of play it safe. But it's not like a great feeling that I have. And I think out of all of these guys, Evans might be the one that ends up on my bench. To me though, it's between Evans and Kamara. And I could see either of them ending up on my bench, but it's so funny to say that because it's like that's the scariest fucking thing because regardless of matchup and situation, it's like of all the guys on this list that have like gone for monster crazy playoff games before, I just named the 2, Mike Evans and Kamara. So 100% I get your feeling. Totally 100%, but I mean, we got to go off the data that we have available to us this year. A little bit of recency bias. I do tend to play in short windows. I think that's how the NFL works. And I think kind of playing in these, 4 to 6 week windows for the most part works out. And then you get these outlier games where sometimes a Mike Evans or an Alvin Kamara just do what they do. I don't know that this is the week for that, though. So, again, I think me personally, and maybe I end up eating shit for, I think it's Evans is the one that ends up on my bench. So, that was a tough one, though. So, on that note, though, I appreciate you guys all stopping in. Thank you so much for dropping your questions. There's no more Monday shows. The Monday shows are dead. So, we will be back next week, Thursday or Friday. We'll figure it out. But we'll be back for your matchups, for your semifinals, and then for Sunday questions for the same week. But yeah, otherwise, happy holidays. Super kick that sub, and I'll catch all of you guys on the flip side.
He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs at the 50. He runs at the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms, bare-chested. Somebody stop that man. Here comes